I have a great idea. Let's try to really piss off the European fans by talking about everything American in MotoGP. And before those of you across the pond get to sharpening your pitchforks, everyone just relax. It's all in fun, and we here in America can admit that MotoGP is still predominantly a European sport, for now. Okay, if you didn't know, this week is the Grand Prix of the Americas in Austin, Texas, the only race we have here in North America. And this year, because of the cancellation of the Argentinian Grand Prix, which was supposed to be last weekend, it's actually the only race we have in any of the Americas. So I wanted to take this chance and kind of celebrate everything American about MotoGP. For those of you who don't know, and I've said it before on this channel, the premier class in motorcycle racing used to be dominated by the Americans. 13 premier class world championships were won between 1978 and 1993. And then you can throw in Kenny Roberts and Nicky Hayden just for good measure and make it 15 world titles at the highest level of motorcycle racing. And I know the Europeans might not want to hear it, but that is more than Spain, France, and Rhodesia combined. I don't know why I threw in Rhodesia, but it's a cool fun fact. But that is the past, so as Americans, what do we have to cheer for now? Well, there's a brand new American-owned stars and striped livery bike in the MotoGP paddock in the form of Trackhouse Racing's Aprilia Independent team. Although their riders right now are not American. They have Miguel Oliveira, who's Portuguese, and Raul Fernandez, who's Spanish. But I think for me, they're honorary Americans because they ride around on the stars and stripes week after week on that motorcycle. But that's not all. We also have the American racing team in Moto2, an American rider, Joe Roberts, leading that team's charge this year, with a podium in round 2 in Portugal. I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying that a lot of us have a lot of faith in Joe Roberts to be that next American that makes the move into MotoGP, probably with Trackhouse Racing. I mean, it makes sense. The next thing Americans can take pride in when it comes to MotoGP is the Circuit of the Americas just by itself. It is an amazing racetrack. Elevation changes, blind corners, long straightaways, everything you could possibly want. And it's in the amazing city of Austin, Texas. If you haven't gotten a chance to get to the Circuit of the Americas to either see MotoGP or Formula One, you have to get there. It's a great time, a great trip. Treat yourself. And I don't think we can talk about Americans in MotoGP without talking about Liberty Media. As I'm sure you know by now, the Colorado-based conglomerate just purchased the rights to MotoGP along with already having the rights to Formula One. And there is no doubt they want to expand more in the USA. They want in this market. It's a big freaking market. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions about Liberty Media forcing its way into MotoGP, and whether you like it or hate it, it's kind of irrelevant. They're here. They bought the company. They're here to stay. And they are going to do some different things with the sport. It's just going to happen. It's time to get over it and just wait for the changes and hope for the best. No matter how you feel about Liberty Media, I wanted to take the opportunity to go through some of the headlines that are coming out since the acquisition. The first was kind of obvious to me, which is that MotoGP and F1 will not be bundled and packaged together to media outlets around the world. They came out and said right away that MotoGP will be operated as an independent company under the umbrella of the Formula One group, under the umbrella of Liberty Media. But they're their own thing. The people at Dorna are still going to run it. The headquarters are still in Spain. So how much is really going to change, right? And I think a lot of fans were worried that MotoGP was just going to become a sideshow to Formula One, an opening act. But this statement kind of proves otherwise. They want the MotoGP brand to stand on its own, to make its own media deals separate from Formula One. I mean, that's how they're going to make money on this. But they haven't ruled out a Formula One MotoGP joint weekend. That has been in the works for a little bit. And when I say in the works, I mean they've been talking about it. I think there are some major logistical problems to run Formula One and MotoGP in the same weekend, but it can be done with the right track, the right circuit, the right set of circumstances. And one thing they have to consider is not running the feeder programs along with the premier class, meaning Formula 2, Formula 3, Moto 2, Moto 3 probably wouldn't run at the same track at the same weekend if it was combined Formula 1 and MotoGP. There's just not enough real estate. But MotoGP says Moto 2 and Moto 3 will not change. They are not going to go to a Formula 1 format for the feeder classes. If you didn't know, the lower classes in MotoGP are their own championship in themselves. They run every single week right along with MotoGP. Whereas Formula 2 and Formula 3 don't necessarily run every weekend Formula 1 does. MotoGP is saying we appreciate what the lower classes bring to a Sunday afternoon, and we want those 3 races, and sometimes 4 races with Moto E, to happen every single weekend to give the fans the biggest motorcycle experience, which I think is very good news, because if you know anything about me, you know how much I love Moto 3, how I think it is probably the most entertaining race every single weekend. They always outshine everyone. You just haven't heard of these riders, and that's okay. And the last headline I want to talk about is the CEO of Dorna saying, listen, F1's expansion into America is kind of an exception to the rule. It's not usually how these things happen. There are a ton of companies, not just sporting companies, that want to work their way into the American market. The same way American companies want to expand to Europe, to Asia, all over the world. And while MotoGP isn't being shy about their desire to expand into America, they know it's not just copy and paste from Formula One and it's all going to work out great. Which means for all of you online who think that Ride to Survive is just a step to make MotoGP into Formula One and then it's over and all of a sudden we're racing in Miami and Texas and California and Chicago and Toronto and Vancouver and Mexico City and whatever else enters your brain when you hear about this merger, it's not automatic. They know that bringing MotoGP into an American market is filled with challenges. And the first one, and maybe the biggest one, is time zone. It's something they can do nothing about. Because events that air live in Europe or Asia in the middle of the afternoon is the middle of the night here for us in the USA. And while there's people like me who don't mind watching it on a tape delay, getting up on Sunday morning, having a coffee, going to the app, clicking it on, and just watching at our own pace, American sports fans have been programmed to watch things live. In a bar, in a group, with your friends. It's a social experience. And I think the people at MotoGP know that, and now they have to figure out how to crack that code. And that's all I got for you, but if you've been liking the MotoGP content here on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment. I like to talk to everybody, whether you hate Americans in MotoGP, whether you love us dearly. Please don't hesitate to comment, reach out, say hi. Try not to be too disrespectful, but also live your own life. I can't control you. But then you can also head over to TikTok, like, follow, share there, Instagram. I'm everywhere.